What happens when Europe's idea of a lake meets a body of water with waves, freighters, beaches, and a horizon that refuses to end? The Great Lakes were dismissed as oversized ponds, until reality made that confidence look painfully small. And if America can hide 5 inland seas in plain sight, what else has the world misunderstood about this country? Welcome to a side of America no headline ever managed to capture: America's impossible ponds. A lake so large that Europe's familiar sense of distance simply stops working sounds like an American joke, until the shoreline disappears and the water begins behaving like an ocean. That is the first surprise waiting for many European visitors who arrive in the United States carrying an image built from headlines, crime clips, political arguments, and the same recycled footage of chaos. The country they meet in person is wider, calmer, friendlier, and far more beautiful than that picture ever allowed. During the 2026 World Cup, that contrast became impossible to ignore. Visitors came for stadiums and football, then discovered that America's real spectacle often began after the final whistle. The Great Lakes were one of those revelations. Calling them ponds makes sense only until Lake Superior enters the conversation. Its surface area is roughly comparable to Austria, while the 5 lakes together cover about 94,000 square miles and hold close to 1/5 of the world's surface freshwater. In much of Europe, a lake can still feel connected to a village, a hillside, or a road you can circle before dinner. Around the Great Lakes, the horizon takes the evening off. That scale changes the mood completely. Lake Michigan offers broad beaches, real waves, cargo ships, waterfront skylines, and sunsets that look as though the Pacific quietly moved to Chicago without telling anyone. In Switzerland, Lake Geneva is elegant and beautifully framed by mountains and towns. Italy's Lake Como feels polished, intimate, and cinematic. They are treasures, but the American experience is different. Less like admiring a jewel in a display case, and more like standing beside a force of nature that forgot to stop growing. In England's Lake District, Windermere can be crossed by ferry in minutes and understood as part of a compact, storybook landscape. Lake Superior can produce waves around 30 feet high, enough to challenge large freighters. That difference is not an insult to Europe's beauty. It is simply the moment America replaces charm with scale and somehow keeps both. This is where the old media image begins to collapse. The United States is often presented abroad as loud, dangerous, and exhausted, yet the landscape tells a more generous story. Families picnic beside clean water, people drive for hours without leaving the same shoreline, and entire cities draw life from a freshwater system large enough to be seen from space. The country suddenly feels less like a collection of bad headlines, and more like a continent wearing one flag. That discovery explains why some visitors begin extending trips, changing plans, and quietly wondering why home suddenly feels closer and smaller than it did before. America gives them room, movement, warmth, spectacle, and the strange comfort of feeling that another, unforgettable place is always one highway away. The Great Lakes are not oversized ponds. They are America's way of reminding Europe that nature here does not whisper politely from the background. It walks into the room, takes the biggest chair, and still leaves enough space for everyone else. The tap behind America. A country can impress visitors with mountains, skylines, and stadiums, but the thing that keeps people emotionally attached is often much quieter. The feeling that daily life simply works. The Great Lakes reveal that side of America better than almost any postcard ever could, because their greatest power is not what they look like from the shore. It is what happens when somebody turns on a kitchen faucet hundreds of miles away. The interconnected Great Lakes provide drinking water for more than 40 million people and deliver roughly 212 billion liters every day to farms and industries along their banks. Those figures are so large that they almost lose meaning, so it helps to bring them down to street level. 40 million people means entire metropolitan regions waking up, brewing coffee, filling school bottles, running restaurants, washing hospital equipment, and keeping factories moving with water tied to the same freshwater system. America has somehow taken a natural wonder visible from space and made it part of the morning routine. That is where the surprise becomes deeper than simple geography. Many European visitors arrive expecting America to feel unstable because the loudest stories reaching them are usually about political conflict, urban problems, or some fresh national argument playing on television. Then ordinary life introduces a completely different country, one built around systems so large that their reliability is easy to overlook. The Great Lakes do not perform for the camera every morning, yet they quietly support homes, businesses, agriculture, and major cities across an enormous region. European countries also manage impressive water networks, but the scale is usually divided among rivers, reservoirs, groundwater, and smaller lake systems. London relies heavily on the Thames and surrounding reservoirs, while Madrid draws from a network of reservoirs spread across central Spain. Those systems are effective, carefully managed, and essential to life. The American difference lies in having one connected body of freshwater so vast that it behaves like natural infrastructure on a continental scale. That can be strangely addictive for visitors. America often gives people the sense that there is more capacity than they expected: wider roads, larger stores, longer shorelines, and enough fresh water to serve a population larger than many nations. It does not mean every system is perfect, and it does not erase real challenges. What it does is replace the cartoon version of America with something more convincing, because everyday comfort is harder to dismiss than a slogan. There's also a distinctly American kind of humor in the fact that one of the planet's greatest freshwater reserves spends most of its time doing ordinary chores. It helps grow crops, cool equipment, supply cities, and fill somebody's ice tray before dinner. That is like hiring an NFL offensive line to carry groceries, except the groceries happen to belong to tens of millions of people. This may be one reason visitors begin to feel reluctant about leaving. The attachment does not come only from famous attractions or dramatic scenery. It grows from discovering that America's scale is woven into normal life, often without ceremony and without asking for applause. The Great Lakes are breathtaking from the shoreline, but their most impressive achievement may be much less visible. They make an extraordinary country feel comfortably livable. The river that built America Europe has rivers that decorate capitals. America has one that helped assemble a country. The Mississippi does not merely pass through the landscape like a ribbon placed there for photographs. It runs for roughly 2,350 miles from Minnesota to the Gulf of Mexico, gathers water from a drainage basin covering about 2 million square miles, and connects the economic life of a vast interior that would otherwise feel separated by impossible distances. Once European visitors understand that scale, the river stops looking like scenery and starts looking like national machinery. This is where the comparison with Europe becomes especially revealing. The Thames flows for about 215 miles, carrying history through London with unmistakable elegance. The Seine stretches roughly 480 miles and gives Paris one of the most recognizable waterfronts on Earth. The Rhine is far longer, crossing several countries and serving as one of Europe's great commercial arteries. Yet the Mississippi belongs to a different category of experience because its identity is not tied to one capital or one postcard view. It moves past farmland, industrial towns, levees, wetlands, ports, music cities, and communities whose accents change long before the river does. That variety is part of its appeal. Following the Mississippi feels less like visiting a landmark and more like watching America change clothes without leaving the room. In Minnesota, it begins with a quietness that hardly suggests what comes later. Farther south, it widens, collects tributaries, carries barges, feeds agriculture, and eventually reaches Louisiana with the confidence of something that has been handling national business since before interstate highways existed. The freight traffic explains why this river matters beyond romance. Barges can move enormous quantities of grain, coal, petroleum products, and other bulk goods with remarkable efficiency. A single tow may push many barges together, forming a floating convoy that can carry the equivalent of hundreds of rail cars or thousands of trucks, depending on the load. On European city rivers, visitors often notice bridges, embankments, and architecture first. Along the Mississippi, the river itself can look like it has a shift schedule. That working character creates a distinctly American kind of beauty. It is not polished in the manner of the Seine beside the Louvre, nor framed like the Danube passing through Budapest. Its charm comes from usefulness, distance, and the sense that the nation's interior is still breathing through it. The Mississippi can appear muddy, broad, slow, and almost casual while quietly moving the harvest of entire regions toward world markets. It has the temperament of an old Southern uncle who says very little because everyone already knows he owns the tractor. For visitors arriving during the 2026 World Cup, this wider America can be more surprising than any stadium. Media coverage abroad often compresses the United States into a handful of coastal cities, political arguments, and dramatic incidents. The Mississippi breaks that narrow frame by revealing how much of the country exists between the headlines. Here, America is agricultural, industrial, musical, historic, and deeply connected by water. That connection becomes addictive because it makes travel feel meaningful rather than decorative. A drive along the river is not simply a sequence of views. It passes through the blues heritage of the Delta, the port culture of New Orleans, farming communities in the Midwest, and towns built around the knowledge that this waterway carries both memory and livelihood. Europe's rivers may lead visitors through several nations. The Mississippi leads them deeper into one nation until they realize how many different Americas have been living inside it all along. America's alpine mirror. Some landscapes impress because they are enormous, while Lake Tahoe works by making people doubt their own eyes. The water can appear so clear, so blue, and so perfectly framed by mountains that the first reaction is often less about size than disbelief. It looks almost edited, as though someone turned the saturation up too far and forgot to return the controls before visitors arrived. That is precisely why Tahoe becomes so addictive. It offers the drama of the American West without asking people to choose between wilderness and comfort. The lake sits high in the Sierra Nevada, straddling California and Nevada, with a surface elevation of more than 6,200 feet. At its deepest point, it reaches about 1,645 feet, making it the second deepest lake in the United States after Crater Lake. This is not a shallow resort lake dressed up with expensive cabins. Beneath that calm blue surface lies enough depth to swallow a skyscraper and still leave room for the imagination to get nervous. European visitors naturally compare Tahoe with famous alpine lakes closer to home. Lake Geneva is larger and surrounded by cities, vineyards, and elegant transport links. Lake Como offers villas, steep hillsides, and the kind of polished beauty that makes every balcony look ready for a movie scene. Tahoe creates a different feeling because the landscape seems less arranged. Pine forests run toward the water, granite slopes rise behind them, and the shoreline often feels as though civilization arrived recently and was politely told not to disturb the view. The cultural difference is subtle, but powerful. Many celebrated European lakes are enjoyed through towns, promenades, cafes, ferries, and architecture. Tahoe invites people to enter the scenery more directly. They hike above it, paddle across it, ski beside it, camp near it, or simply stop along the road because the color of the water has made continuing to drive feel unreasonable. The experience is not built around observing beauty from a table. It encourages people to become slightly sunburned participants. That physical freedom is where America wins affection. The country's great landscapes rarely behave like museum pieces protected behind velvet ropes. They are large, active, and surprisingly accessible. A visitor can spend the morning on a mountain trail, eat lunch near the shoreline, and watch the evening light turn the lake from bright blue to silver without needing to cross a national border or change the entire travel plan. Tahoe also carries a distinctly American contradiction. The lake feels remote enough to silence a crowded mind, yet it is surrounded by roads, resorts, ski areas, and communities that make the experience easy to enter. Nature delivers the main performance, while America quietly handles parking, boat rentals, trail access, and somewhere nearby, a breakfast portion large enough to repair yesterday's hike. This is why places like Tahoe challenge the version of the United States often exported through television. The headlines may suggest noise, conflict, and endless concrete, but the real country contains alpine water so clear that the mountains appear to have a second life beneath the surface. That discovery can make a short visit feel dangerously expandable. Lake Tahoe does not need to compete with Europe's famous lakes by copying their elegance. Its appeal comes from offering something more open, more physical, and unmistakably Western. A place where beauty is not merely admired, but lived inside until going home starts to feel like the least attractive option on the itinerary. America's Blue Abyss. Some lakes invite people to relax beside them. Crater Lake makes them step closer, lower their voices, and wonder how water can possibly look that blue without somebody admitting there's a filter involved. Hidden inside the collapsed remains of Mount Mazama in southern Oregon, Crater Lake reaches a depth of about 1,943 feet, making it the deepest lake in the United States. Its basin was created when a massive volcanic eruption caused the mountain to collapse thousands of years ago. Rain and snow gradually filled the crater, while no major rivers flowed in to muddy the water. The result is a lake so clear and intensely colored that it can look less like ordinary freshwater and more like a piece of the sky that fell into the mountain and decided to stay. This is where America offers a completely different kind of grandeur from the Great Lakes or the Mississippi. Crater Lake does not conquer visitors through endless distance or national commerce. It wins through concentration. Everything dramatic has been gathered into one place. Volcanic walls, deep water, winter snow, pine forests, and a silence that feels almost physical. The landscape does not spread itself across several states. It pulls inward, like nature built an arena and reserved every seat for the color blue. Europe certainly has extraordinary volcanic lakes. Lake Bolsena in Italy is one of the continent's largest volcanic lakes, while Iceland offers crater landscapes shaped by fire ice and geological force. Yet Crater Lake carries a particularly American sense of isolation. There is no grand city wrapped around its shoreline, no line of villas reflected in the water, and no cafe promenade turning the view into a social event. The lake remains almost entirely inside a national park, which allows the experience to feel raw, spacious, and wonderfully uncommercial. That restraint is part of what visitors find so compelling. America is often imagined abroad as a country that adds neon signs, parking lots, and oversized souvenir cups to everything it touches. Crater Lake quietly ruins that theory. Here, the main attraction is protected by distance, weather, and an approach road that seems to make the modern world fall away 1 mile at a time. The water's color also creates its own kind of obsession. Depending on the light, it can shift from bright cobalt to a dark blue that seems almost bottomless. Wizard Island, a volcanic cone rising from the lake, gives the scene an extra touch of mischief, as though the volcano completed the landscape and then signed its work in the middle. This is the sort of place that changes how visitors understand American nature. It is not merely big, useful, or convenient. It can also be ancient, quiet, and beautifully severe. The country that foreign media often reduces to traffic, politics, and loud cities contains a lake formed by catastrophe, filled only by the sky, and protected with enough care that its silence has survived. Crater Lake does not ask for attention in the American way people expect. It earns attention by making everything else feel temporarily unnecessary. The river that carved time. Most rivers politely follow the land. The Colorado River looked at the American West and apparently decided the landscape needed a complete renovation. Running for roughly 1,350 miles from the Rocky Mountains toward Mexico, the Colorado is famous not because it quietly passes through pretty scenery, but because it helped create some of the most dramatic terrain on Earth. Its greatest masterpiece is the Grand Canyon, where layers of rock reveal nearly 2 billion years of geological history, and the canyon reaches more than a mile deep in places. Europe has ancient castles that preserve centuries. America has a river that opened the planet like a history book and left the pages standing upright. That is the real source of its fascination. The Colorado does not offer beauty that feels decorative or neatly arranged for visitors. It creates the unnerving impression that the Earth is still unfinished. Cliffs rise in red, gold, brown, and violet bands, while the river moves far below with the calm confidence of an artist who knows the audience cannot possibly understand how long the work took. Scientists estimate that much of the Grand Canyon was carved over the past 5 to 6 million years, although the rocks exposed in its walls are vastly older. In other words, the river has been working on one project longer than Europe has been debating where to build its next airport. The comparison with European rivers reveals two very different relationships with nature. The Rhine is lined with castles, vineyards, towns, and centuries of human settlement. The Danube connects major capitals such as Vienna, Budapest, and Bratislava, turning the river into a cultural avenue through the heart of Europe. Along the Colorado, human architecture often becomes a supporting character. The cliffs control the skyline, the desert sets the mood, and the river carries on as though city planning were somebody else's hobby. That imbalance is exactly what many visitors find addictive. In Europe, great rivers often make travelers feel connected to civilization. The Colorado makes them feel briefly released from it. Roads disappear behind plateaus, phone signals become less important, and distances stretch far enough to reset the brain. This is not simply sightseeing, it is the rare experience of standing somewhere that makes daily worries look embarrassingly small. There's also something deeply American about refusing to soften the encounter. Visitors are not handed a tidy little riverfront promenade with matching cafe umbrellas. They receive desert heat, canyon winds, enormous viewpoints, and a horizon that seems to have eaten the nearest town. America does not frame the Colorado like a painting, it lets the river keep the whole wall. That wild scale challenges the picture of the United States often shaped by foreign media. A country frequently reduced to politics, traffic, and commercial excess also protects landscapes where human noise feels temporary. The Colorado River reveals an older America beneath the modern one, patient, rugged, and powerful enough to turn stone into scenery. The river's appeal comes from one unforgettable idea. It proves that American beauty is not always something placed on the land. Sometimes it is what remains after nature spends millions of years carving everything unnecessary away. Nature turned full volume. At Niagara, even the souvenir shops know they are not the loudest attraction in the neighborhood. Before the falls appear, the sound has already arrived, rolling through the air like distant thunder that forgot to leave. Then the river reaches the edge, and an ordinary border between land and water becomes one of America's most unforgettable public performances. The Niagara River runs only about 36 miles between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, which sounds almost modest beside the Mississippi or Colorado. Yet this short river proves that grandeur does not always need thousands of miles. Sometimes nature simply concentrates everything into one roaring corner and turns the volume knob until a conversation becomes optional. At Horseshoe Falls, the water drops roughly 167 feet. Around 3,160 tons of water can pour over Niagara Falls every second, creating a force that is difficult to understand from photographs. Pictures capture the shape, but they cannot deliver the vibration underfoot, the cold mist on the face, or the strange urge to laugh when the scale finally registers. Niagara does not politely wait for admiration. It reaches across the railing and makes sure everyone is paying attention. Europe has powerful waterfalls, including Rhine Falls in Switzerland, often described as the continent's largest by volume. It is about 75 feet high and roughly 500 feet wide, framed by castles, wooded banks, and the careful beauty of Central Europe. Rhine Falls is impressive, but Niagara feels like someone invited the entire Great Lakes system to make an entrance. The comparison is not about dismissing European scenery. It shows how America often takes a familiar natural feature and enlarges the experience until the visitor's old measuring system becomes useless. The most compelling difference, however, lies in the culture built around that power. America did not hide Niagara behind distant viewpoints and warning signs. It created boats that carry visitors into the mist, pathways beside the rushing water, observation decks, public parks, and nighttime illumination that turns the falls into a living stage. The attraction remains wild, yet the experience is remarkably open. Visitors do not merely photograph the waterfall from a safe little balcony. They put on a poncho, step aboard, and willingly allow nature to ruin their hairstyle. That playful accessibility explains why Niagara becomes addictive. It removes the stiff formality that often surrounds famous landmarks. Nobody needs to whisper, pose perfectly, or pretend not to be amazed. Families laugh, strangers compare how soaked they became, and grown adults grin like children because the waterfall has made dignity temporarily unnecessary. There's also a deeply American confidence in turning overwhelming natural power into something shared rather than distant. The same river supports major hydroelectric facilities on both sides of the border, showing that a Niagara can inspire awe and perform serious work before breakfast. It is part cathedral, part power plant, and part theme park designed by geology. Foreign coverage often portrays the United States through conflict and excess, yet Niagara reveals a more generous kind of abundance. Here, too much becomes the entire point. Too much water for silence, too much force for indifference, and too much fun for anyone to remain unimpressed. Niagara proves that America does not always ask visitors to stand back and admire nature politely. Sometimes it hands them a plastic poncho and sends them straight into the applause. Europe may have arrived expecting America to be smaller than the stories, yet its rivers, lakes, canyons, and waterfalls reveal the opposite. A country whose beauty keeps expanding beyond every assumption. From the Great Lakes to Niagara, these waters do more than shape the land. They reshape how visitors see the nation itself. Which American wonder would you visit first? Share your choice below, subscribe to the channel, and return again for more places that make America impossible to forget.